If you don't know where you are, you're at the Watercraft Inspection Off-Season Workshop, where we're going to talk about last season, prepare for next season, and learn from each other's programs. So I think everyone's familiar with using Teams, but I just put a little bit of information here on the screen for you as a reminder. And our goals for this workshop are to recap the past season and prepare for the upcoming season, learn from one another, network. Just a reminder for some meeting expectations. We'd like you to be an active listener and speak honestly, share information in ways that can help others be successful, be respectful and open to new ideas and new ways of doing things, and everyone participates and no one dominates. So with that, I will introduce myself. For those that haven't met me yet, I'm Tina Fitzgerald. I'm the Watercraft Inspection Program Supervisor for the statewide program here at Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. Thanks for being here today on our online workshop about our programs. So we're going to have some fun participation activity here this morning to keep you engaged. So if you'd like to join in answering some questions here, you can go to menti.com and enter the code, or you can scan the QR code and participate on your phone. But I'll be asking a few questions throughout my section of this meeting just to make sure we're all on the same page on a few things and generate some fun things as well. So I'll leave that up there for just another minute, but I think, and then we'll move on. And I can put this, Janine, you want to put this in the chat? With the code, let's see, menti.com. 91. There we go. So this is what we'll cover today at our off-season workshop. So we have reviewing and planning for 2026. We'll talk about that. Janine will talk about training requirements. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll have 4 different panels, one on partnering across borders, one on handling violations, one on recruiting and retaining staff, and then finally using data and local knowledge to inform inspection locations and hours. So got a wide variety of people participating on panels. So just want to do a shout out to everyone who has agreed to be on a panel. And we'll have time for questions throughout the meeting. So thank you, panel members and presenters for participating in this workshop here today. We couldn't do it without you. So really appreciate that. Let me pull up. Let's see. Okay, so how long have you been part of your programs? So we've got 4 people that have been here for 13 years. Way to go. A good number in just a couple years experience, and then a little bit in between. So wide variety of experience and so far in this participation here. So keep that in mind as we kind of walk through things. So our next question is, I think I have to move on to the next slide. What words come to mind when you hear watercraft inspection? So why don't you enter that? Wow, sorry if you get motion sickness here as I move between things. That's not what I want. That's what I want. So I'll let you enter your information into the Menti, and it will make a nice word cloud for us. And as you do that, I'll just, this isn't news to anyone that inspectors are on the front lines of AIS prevention. We're providing the right message in the right place with the right messenger at the right time. So the work that our inspectors do on the landscape is the best way to change behavior and make sure people practice good prevention actions. We've done a variety of studies on this, and based on those results, we know that anglers are concerned and want to do the right thing, that boaters want help from inspectors and access to staff decontamination units. Boaters are willing to spend time to get a decontamination. Most boaters arrive in compliance with AIS laws. Most lakes are not infested, and that spending a few extra minutes inspecting improves effectiveness. So, given all of that information, it's just a really good baseline to keep in mind that the work that we do is really important, and we're in the right place, right time, right message, right messenger. So with that, I'll pop back to our Menti and show responses. Excellent. I'm glad education came up first, because that is the primary goal of our Watercraft inspection program, is education and prevention. So good work, everyone. And I can share this after too. I'm seeing prevention, compliance, outreach, data, fishing, lake compliance. So nice. All right. Sorry. Okay, I have to toggle, do this. Okay. So what year was statute authority granted to the DNR and local partners for watercraft inspection? We got 20 responses. All right. Interesting. Okay. So the correct answer is 2011 is when the statute passed the legislature to give DNR authority to conduct watercraft inspections and for us to delegate that authority to local and tribal governments. So, you get a peek at our next question there. So I really like this graph. I'm going to show a lot of graphs today, which shouldn't be surprising to anyone, that our inspection program has changed over time a lot. We can see that at the beginning, this is when we started to track both local government and DNR number of inspections. We can see partners increase 250% from 2013 to 2015, while DNR saw just a slight decrease there. The partner programs continued to increase from 2015 to 2020, and DNR had a bit of a decrease there when we're working with number of watercraft inspections. And then we both kind of remained steady over the last 3 or 4 years as far as the number of inspections we've completed and the number of inspectors that we've hired, but we've consistently been the largest in the nation. So both by the number of inspectors that we hire and the number of inspections that we complete. Janine, correct me if, I think Colorado had 430,000 this year, and we had 450.
Something close like to that, yeah.
Yeah. So they beat us last year. Colorado beat us last year. They had 460, and we had 450. So we won this year. So good work, team. We get a lot of questions. Who do I contact about this question that I have? Really, the answer is anyone at the DNR, and we can get you to the right person if we're not the right person to ask. But for how our watercraft inspection program is structured here at DNR, we've got some statewide program people like myself that I coordinate the delegation agreements, authorizations, devices, collaboration, coordination, things like that at a statewide level. And then we have regional supervisors that coordinate our about 24 staff in each of their regions for inspections on the ground. So if you're looking to coordinate with DNR inspections on the ground, you contact your regional watercraft inspection supervisor. So that's Mike, Jessamine, Travis, and for now, Tracy with our help. And then as far as training goes, Janine is our statewide training coordinator. She coordinates online training and in-person training registrations. And then we have our North and South trainers that conduct the in-person trainings, Tyler and Cal. So if you have questions about who to contact, here's your information. But like I said, just contact any one of us and we'll get you to the right person. And yeah, so that's our team here at DNR. So what gives inspectors authority to conduct inspections? All right, I'm going to do it. Good job. Yes, all three of these things. So, delegation agreement paperwork. As a reminder, your delegation agreement, the statute allows the DNR to enter into delegation agreements with local and tribal governments. It gives local partners the same authority that the DNR has to conduct watercraft inspections. And it requires that partners receive training from us and that you follow all of our protocols. So the required paperwork for this year is your end of season report, an active delegation agreement, your 2026 plan, and a contract if you're using a staffing agency, which about half of the programs do. So all paperwork must be submitted before you can request training. Any pilots that you want to do that are outside of our current protocols need to be approved by the DNR before implementation. Local enforcement should be your first point of contact. And that after a staff person completes training, you need to request authorization for them. So the authorization letter is really important. It's a required part of the delegation agreement. It's the final permission for them to work out on the landscape. It's important for you as a program manager to know who works for you, especially if you use a contractor, because your organization is responsible for their actions. And it also impacts the year of experience of their inspectors. So if you miss an authorization year, they become a first-year inspector again. If they haven't been listed on an authorization letter. So Janine will talk more about training, the other parts of this, but just wanted to highlight the authorization steps here because that's my role. You will receive a final training notice from our training team, and then you must request authorization. It's what's listed in the delegation agreement as that process, is that you will receive training, and once your staff have been trained, you must request authorization. And that's just sending an email to me with the training notice saying, authorize these people, please. And then I send a letter, and it has to be signed by our section manager, and then I send it off to each of you. So, devices. Which of the options below is the correct way to name a device? Any questions on the authorization process while we answer this question? All right. I'm going to show the responses. All right, good work. That is correct. So it's LGU and then your 4-letter LGU name, and then a 3-digit number starting with 001. Move on to the next slide, and then move on to this. So, devices. Just a friendly reminder, we had a few challenges last year that were reported. Some old devices stopped uploading data, or the survey stopped working on the devices. In one case, the app was not updated at the beginning of the season. The inspector used the 2023 survey all year, and we were not able to recover any of that data. So, in order to avoid the loss of important data, delete the application from all your devices right now. All right, delete the application, because that will ensure that you have the most up-to-date application and most up-to-date survey. You won't have that, there's a potential to have, if you keep the survey on the device, there's a potential that the last year's survey will stay on there and it won't get replaced by the new survey. So that's why we ask you to delete it. I will notify you when the survey is ready to be uploaded onto devices. There will be instructions in that handbook. Alicia, thank you. She recommends a factory reset of all devices every year. So, pro tip right there. And then inspectors should be arriving to trainings with the current application and survey ready on their device. Some devices are no longer supported just because of security reasons, that the survey is not able to be updated on those types of devices. I've listed them here. This will be in the handbook as well. And then just a couple other notes on devices to check the data early and often throughout the season for errors or inconsistencies. And then report any device issues to us right away. And just to talk a little bit about how our survey works. We create the survey at the very beginning of the year. So right now we're working to make some slight changes to it, including adding case numbers. So if you have a lake you have not inspected at before and you need a new case number, you have to get it to me by March, or you'll have to use a generic, DNR random number all season, because we won't have that case number in the survey. So if you think you're going to go to any place, we can create as many case numbers as you need. It doesn't matter. So just send that to me now before March. So what happens is we make the survey update, the contractor publishes it. We tell you to download the application and authenticate your devices. We push the survey to 800 devices, and then the surveys are available. And so during the season, the green flow chart here, when the data is uploaded from a device, it leaves the device and goes to our contracting company. And then we download the data every few days throughout the season from the online portal. We use a Python script to cut the data up and piece it back together so that it's easier for us to analyze using pivot tables. And then that data becomes available on the FTP and administrative portal. So this information is important because we get a lot of requests like, why don't you have the infested waters list? Or, why don't you have lakes listed as having invasive species in them? And the fact is we can't, because that information changes throughout the season. It would be immediately out of date as soon as we added the infested waters list to the survey, as soon as a new infested waters became infested that season. So the survey is not live. We can't change it during the season unless we absolutely need to. It's like broken and we need to change it. And then 800 people have to re-download the right survey. So we avoid that at all costs. And then, we can't live edit the survey. We can't go back and say you're at the same access and have the access populate. Because I know that's the biggest mistake that people have to correct is they're entering the wrong case number. And so, but we can't automatically generate that. It's not a live connection to the survey. So that's kind of where our hands are kind of tied in how the survey is made, just for people to be aware of that. So if you have any questions about the survey, and yes, if you have survey suggestions, you can email me and we can chat about it. If you have questions about the survey, go ahead and ask those, and then also answer this question. Ooh. Yes, all over the board. So average size, we have 62 programs. The average size is 14 staff. Oh, go to the slide here. So we'll get into our partner programs. So the highlighted counties are all the counties that have watercraft inspection programs, along with one tribe, the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe, Sheriff's Office, park boards, conservation districts, watershed districts, lake improvement districts, cities, and townships. So wide variety of programs, wide variety of sizes of programs. We have one lake with one inspector, and then we have, Spencer with 15 people and 100 lakes, and then we've got Three Rivers Park District with 100 inspectors and 5 lakes. So it's quite a variety of different sizes of programs, which you can see here in these charts. So, on average, we're seeing that, under 10 staff people with, about under 5,000 hours and under 10 accesses are a vast majority of the programs operating here in Minnesota. We had 61 partner programs reported, 760 staff worked 200,000 hours at 815 accesses. And this is why Minnesota's program is the largest in the nation. So great work, everyone. And I forgot to mention at the beginning of this meeting that we are recording this meeting and that we'll provide these slides afterwards too, so you can reference them. So our partner inspection programs over time, again, another chart for you. You can see it's varied from year to year, but relatively consistent over the last 10 years or so, with the number of hours, the number of inspections, the number of accesses, and the number of inspectors hired. So I get this data from your end of season reports. So that's where this information comes from. All right, I've got like 10 minutes left, I think. 15? Okay. So did you log into the administrative portal last year? You can keep answering while we... Okay, good. That's a good number. Excellent. So I'm hoping these other 6 we can, and 2, we can get you to know what that is and get you to log in. So the administrative portal has a variety of things. You can put your decontamination unit location and hours on there. You can correct your surveys, and it has a list of all the case numbers. So for right now, what we'd like you to do is check that all of your accesses that you plan to inspect at have case numbers this season. Throughout the season, again, check your data to make sure it's accurate. Data accuracy is really important. We use this data long-term and year to year for a variety of reasons, and not just the DNR, but local programs and researchers both in the state and elsewhere use this data to analyze it. So we report to the legislature. We use it for our tier list for assigning accesses. It informs decision-making for local programs, which we'll talk about later. There's research on voter movement and risk that build decision-making tools and tracks trends over time. So data accuracy is really important. So making sure and checking your data often, talking with your inspectors about the importance of data accuracy makes all of our programs better. So here's a little bit of data for you. As you can see, we typically trend up with the number of inspections through the summer, peaking in July and going back down through August and into the fall. We do a lot of entering inspections, likely because that's when our hours of inspections happen, is when boaters are going on to the lake versus exiting. The most inspected boat is, of course, fishing boats with 279,000. We also do a good number of runabouts and pontoons and other things as well. So we did 451, 349 watercraft inspections between DNR and local programs this year. So what percent of programs arrived in compliance with AIS laws this year? Oops, forgot to move it on. And I might breeze through some things just to make sure we get to everything, and I can, again, just send the PowerPoint with people after this. So 97% is the correct answer. So 97% of entering inspections followed Minnesota laws. Same with the drain plug compliance rate. Inspectors, found something on incoming inspections about 7,000 times. And zebra mussels were found on 284 incoming watercraft. Most importantly, 5 of those were at water bodies not known to be infested. A quick snapshot of zebra mussel violations reported to the DNR. There were 289 violations in the survey, and 144 got reports to the DNR by 70 inspectors at 106 accesses. 60% of reports had enforcement results. You can see they gave out 87 warnings and 1 citation. 15 of those were lake service providers of the violations. 96% of the violators were from Minnesota. The reports were half from DNR and half from local governments, and some of these were reported from storage over the past year. And we'll cover violation reporting a little more in our panel, but for those that have yet to establish a relationship with local enforcement for AIS violations, this is the process for submitting violations. The inspector has to complete that survey and take those pictures, complete a write-up, and upload that survey within 24 hours. The local government has to email me that report, and then I have to merge that data with the survey data and send it along to enforcement. So we'll go to the next slide. And we'll just skip this one because we've got 4,000 watercraft decontaminations this season. We had about 65 units operating. We had 4,359 decontaminations. The vast majority were partial decontaminations for exiting watercraft. We did have almost 900 people show up and ask for a courtesy decontamination, which is really great. So they're going out of their way to get a decontamination. And when people do partial and courtesy decontaminations, they say which type of decontamination they do. So most of these partial decontaminations are external, so hot water, low flow external decontamination. And we're missing a few opportunities. I just have some numbers here that are in that report that I emailed yesterday. UNIT was present at 20% of all inspections. We completed 4,000 decontaminations. But the number of risky boats, which are listed above as just straight numbers from the data, was much higher. So there's opportunity to be doing more decontaminations on wake sport boats, on those that are out of the water for less than 24 hours and are trying to enter, or those that are in the water for more than 24 hours and are trying to leave. So we'll skip that and we'll ask this question. I've got 8 minutes to cover the rest of my thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this question open so you can answer that question while I cover the rest of my presentation here. I promise I'll be on time, Janine. So the things that I'm looking forward to improving for next season is we have new manuals that are coming out. So we've updated them to clarify things that have been confusing in the past, essentially. So look for those. We'll get them out to you during training. One thing I'd like to improve is our response for safety and conflict at the access. We know that like 99.9999999% of boaters are very cordial and nice to us, but there's a handful that are not. They are aggressive, they are belligerent, they harass our inspectors. And we've seen that on the landscape over the past year, well, ever since the program started, I assume, unfortunately. So what we're trying to do is just make staff more comfortable and understand that it's okay to call 911. It's okay to leave the access if you feel unsafe. And that's our goal, is to make staff comfortable when they're uncomfortable, right? So really communicate that with your staff to make sure that they are comfortable with calling 911, they're comfortable with leaving the access, if someone is harassing them, if they're being belligerent, if they feel unsafe at all. Because we've had situations where people don't do that because they didn't feel it elevated to that level, but we want them to feel more comfortable in doing that. So make a safety plan with your staff and your contractors and discuss it with them explicitly throughout the season. And make sure to have multiple ways of reporting these issues. So a lead worker, you, contracting supervisor, the non-emergency line, the sheriff's office, an individual at the sheriff's office, a DNR conservation officer that you know, 911, just lots of different ways to connect and feel safe in that way. And then report any concerns to the DNR, because that individual that's causing these problems might not just be your problem. They might be causing problems elsewhere, or a similar situation might have happened elsewhere where we can provide some resolution. So safety is the top priority for watercraft inspectors. Please make a safety plan with your folks. So speaking of conflict, bait, containers, and live wells. So those are the big conflicts we had this past few years. Was, why do I have to drain my aerated bait container? It never even gets lake water in it. Well, when exiting, the law requires all containers, even aerated bait containers, to be drained before leaving the water access. It's the law. There's no exceptions for different types of containers. Enforcement's not able to tell if you come off the water if that's lake water or not. So, and those are the reasons behind, like, it's the law, they have to be drained. So when entering, it's okay to bring that water in, but we want to use this as an educational opportunity. We don't need to be calling enforcement on people that are refusing to drain their bait water. That's just not necessary. It's an educational opportunity. And so unless there's other violations or other issues that need to be elevated. So we want to just provide advice on how to keep their leftover live bait fish. Just remind them to bring extra water next time, leave it in their vehicle, maybe in a cooler with a little ice to keep it the right temperature, and then onshore before leaving, exchanging that water and refilling it. Another conflict we've had is, why do I have to open my live well? No one's ever asked me to do that before. Protocols have always required looking in live wells. We think perhaps maybe during the pandemic, we shied away from touching people's things or looking in people's stuff, but we need to refresh that and say, like, it is your role to look in live wells. You should be looking in live wells. You should be asking the boater to open their live wells so that you can look inside. If the boater refuses, you can help them understand why you're looking. Your role is only looking for invasive species, nothing else. That might make them more comfortable. Why you're looking, the water could contain invasive species, it's illegal to transport water, and if needed, you can list your authority that you have the right to inspect water-containing devices. So those are the two big conflicts we were seeing that I'm hoping to better communicate through our updated manuals, our updated training, our updated in-person trainings, and talking with you all. So, and then, Canada. So Canada requires travelers towing boats and water-related equipment to be cleaned, drained, and dried. And I mean very clean, very drained, and very dry. So violators are being denied entry and provided a form, and they're required to have professional hot water decontamination before re-entering. And they have to provide proof of this. And so we're put in between a rock and a hard place, as they say, because we don't provide proof of decontamination in Minnesota. That's not something we do. According to statute, anyone can complete a decontamination on their own watercraft. It doesn't have to be professional, and it doesn't have to be hot water. So we're stuck in this hard place. So this is what we came up with this season, and it worked relatively well, I think, after we got it running and people understanding things. So if a boater arrives at your decontamination location denied with the form, perform a courtesy decontamination, tell the boater to take a photo for evidence, for proof, and then complete the form. Same thing if they show up without the form and say they've been denied, but you should provide a record of the decontamination. And that record is simply like a business card. You shouldn't be signing anything. You shouldn't have your inspector signing anything. We're not providing proof that this is AIS free. And so that's what we're concerned about. DNR doesn't sign anything. We're just providing business cards saying, like, this is where you got your decontamination. We're not recommended that you provide signed proof of decontamination. According to their form, a business card and a photo of the decontamination are sufficient. So if a boater at any inspection location says that they're going to Canada next, we should be informing, and we've included this in online training, that inform them of the requirements of Canada and offer decontamination services either on site or through our decon portal. So last slide. So for those that didn't know, we've had a volunteer program since 2005 where we teach volunteers to teach boaters self-inspection at public water accesses since 2005. But we've had some challenges with that consistently since the authorization process started in 2011. It just really conflicts with statute authority. The public doesn't understand the difference between volunteers and authorized inspectors that have the authority to look and touch and inspect things. And so we're just seeing that conflict rise more and more. And we've also seen reduced interest in this program. So what we're going to do is a little pivot. We're going to end that particular program. We're going to promote the University of Minnesota's Extensions AIS Detector program, which is more robust. It has a wider variety of information and opportunities. And then we're also going to try piloting a DNR educator program where if someone really just wants to be at a public water access and volunteer for the DNR, we can help them set up a booth to do education about AIS impacts and prevention best practices rather than focusing on inspection processes. So that's where we're going with the volunteer program. So I'll move on to this, and then so we got some good responses from what you're looking to improve. And then let's see, gotta click it here. Okay, so do you want more online workshops? Let us know and you can answer that. So I'll stop sharing and toss the talking stick over to Janine.
Just 2 minutes over. So I'll talk fast. No. Hi, everyone. If you do not know me, of course, I am Janine Howland. I am the Aquatic Invasive Species Training Specialist. I am primarily, online training, but I do statewide training as well. So I'll actually talk about who we all are here. So we are a training team of 3. So I am kind of the statewide specialist, and then we've got Tyler in the north and Cal in the south. Tyler and Cal will be returning 2 weeks, Tina? 17th?
17th.
Is when so very shortly they'll be returning, and you guys will be hearing from them very shortly. So just a little bit about our regions as to where we kind of are at. So of course, Tyler is in the northern counties. They conduct, and then Cal is in the southern counties. They primarily conduct in-person trainings, and they set up the in-person trainings. So most of the scheduling will go through them. Every once in a while, they might kick it off to me if we need additional capacity. So I'm statewide, so I'll travel all across the state to perform trainings as well if needed. Online training is my big thing. So I'm the support, the help desk, the everything online training, essentially. So any questions that might come through on online training or any of that kind of stuff, please reach out to me. If somebody is having lots and lots of issues, please, please, please reach out to me. There are certain things that I can do on the backside to help learners out to be able to move through the process. So please reach out to me. I do not want to see people struggle with online training if that happens. Once they've completed online training, you will receive a training notice from me, of course. So welcome to training season. You will get a lot of emails from me. You might have to respond back to me and get some to request registration for in-person trainings. And then, of course, as I said, I will also conduct in-person trainings as an on-needed basis. I will also increase capacity at trainings for Cal and Tyler if we're starting to reach some of those capacity levels and we need to increase it so we can get more inspectors through. So I just want to recap our 25 training season. So 753 level 1 inspectors were authorized last year. So 383 were authorized by fishing opener, which is about 50%. And then an additional 198 by Memorial Day, 172 were authorized after Memorial Day. So by Memorial Day, we had about 77% of the inspectors authorized and out in the field inspecting. And then we also had an additional 152 level 2 inspectors that were authorized. I also conducted a couple of trainings for National Park Service, which added about 10 more inspectors, decon operators, at 2 different national park locations as well. So just a kind of a general idea of where all of our locations were across the state in 2025. So by fishing opener, here's a bunch of locations that we had our trainings at. And now here's Memorial Day, by 4th of July, and then kind of wrapping up the rest of the season. So we had in total 55 level 1 in-person trainings and 28 level 2 in-person trainings. So now moving on to 2026. I just kind of want to review our training processes and just kind of remind everyone why it's important for online training and in-person training. So online training, as Tina kept mentioning, we've been updating our manuals, and online training also gets updated every single year. So I'm still in the middle of online training updates. I am thinking that it will probably be about 4 hours, but stay tuned. I will have a more updated timing on that as we get closer. I really want people to be able to, we want to be able to really get rid of the questions that people are having, get rid of some of the confusion, and just really make sure that people are understanding all of everything that's required of them. So it's 10 different modules, and there's one exam for the level 1. Level 2 is going to be probably about 3 hours. That's probably going to stick to that, but stay tuned. We're still updating. And then there's 8 different modules and then 2 exams for that one, which is kind of a training-based exam and then kind of a scenario-based exam as well. Just remember that online training can be taken, even though it is 4 hours long or 3 hours long, it can be taken into small chunks. Each of the different modules are at maximum like 30 minutes. People can stop in the middle of them and re-log back in later on and continue on with the training. So it's meant to be broken into small parts, small digestible parts, so that people who may be your students can take training, throughout the day, not just sitting down all at once as well. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're trying to hire inspectors, that it is kind of digestible, different little bits. So online training is really important because this is kind of giving them the foundational information on protocols and procedures, watercraft types, identification, laws and authorities, overview of the survey, all of that kind of stuff. And then it also goes over, if they're taking level 2, it goes over the decontamination basics, how to conduct a decontamination and how to operate the decontamination unit, our different scenarios. So online training is kind of giving them that foundational knowledge, whereas in-person training is giving them the hands-on experience. So how to handle, actually looking at, the samples, AIS themselves, hands-on inspection techniques, how to build, how to handle zebra mussel violations, different survey scenarios. We walk through the decontamination unit, how to operate it, right? And then they actually get hands-on experience in a controlled environment using the decontamination unit as well. So the training requirements this year, so now we're up to a 7th year inspector. Of course, we're going to continue our hybrid training. So these are kind of the standard training requirements that we've had throughout. We're just adding that 7th year inspector this year. So these are people who've been authorized since 2020, that they only have to do online. Same with 6th year, 5th year, 5th year, 2nd year, have that 30 days or until June 1st, whichever is longer, right? And then 1st year inspectors, of course, have to take in-person training before they can even work out in the field. So with those requirements, we're really kind of strategically scheduling for in-person training, right? So we're trying to get trainings close to fishing opener so that the information is really fresh in the inspectors' minds when they get out into the field for their first days out at the access. We know quite a few of you will partner people up with returning inspectors, which is great, but not everybody has that opportunity. So this is why we try to schedule things fairly close. So it might seem like we're really, really rushing. We're trying to keep things really fresh in people's minds before they get out there. That's why we don't do a whole training like 2 months beforehand. We really want it fresh in their minds before they go out and work in the field. In the 2025 season, we only had 2 of our trainings completely full, and we actually extended capacity to those trainings, which means that we have 2 trainers there, so we can split the group into smaller parts. or into smaller pieces so that we can do 2 different things at the same time and then switch groups. But only 2 were completely full. Most of our trainings had, the average, I think, was about 7 openings still. So we had a lot of capacity to be able to absorb additional inspectors into those beginning trainings before fishing opener. So if people are really trying to get people into trainings, there was plenty of spaces. But just a reminder, like first year inspectors are probably going to be more of a priority to get into an in-person training because they need to complete all training requirements before they can go out into the field. Whereas 2nd through 7th year inspectors, they can work in the field. They can either have full authorization or they can receive temporary authorization. So those are some inspectors that you can maybe delay a little bit, maybe not have, come to in-person training right away if you want to get some of your first year inspectors into in-person trainings beforehand. But as I said, we had lots of capacity still available at those trainings before fishing opener. So the training process itself, so Tina kind of showed you guys this diagram, this flow chart. So inspectors will complete online training. I'll send the training notice. You'll be able to review the training notice. This is where you can request temporary authorization for their 2nd or 5th year inspectors, or full authorization for 3rd, 4th, 6th, and 7th year inspectors. If you need to register someone, you can send that back to me. I will update your training notification. There will be a little plus sign next to the people who have been registered for an in-person training, just so that it helps us and it helps you understand who's been registered and everything else. And you'll also receive a confirmation email saying that those people have been registered for an in-person training. You share the information that I share with you with your staff so that they come prepared to the training. We will conduct the training, so Cal or Tyler will. And then they will either most likely send you a new training notification, which will show them being able to be fully authorized at that point. Then you'll work through the authorization process with Tina. So you'll be able to send that letter straight to Tina. Here's what the letter looks like. So if you have level 1 inspectors, the level 2 stuff will be removed off your notification. If you have level 1s and level 2s, you'll be able to see names both listed on here. We're going to kind of continue with that same training process as we did last year, where it takes some time for us to be able to process some of this information. So inspectors must complete training prior to attending in-person training. Due to that processing time, right, that communication back and forth, online training must be completed 3 days prior. So I'll show you a calendar here coming up that will show kind of that 3-day process time. We will be pulling training records at 9 a.m. Last year it was 10. We have some new processes that we are working through that will hopefully ease everything on us. So our training records are going to be pulled at 9 o'clock this year versus 10. You'll still receive notification that exact same day. And then you'll be able to also request registration. I do not register people until I see their name come through in online training. So if you were to request someone's name prior to completing in-person training, they don't get registered. Prior to completing online training, they don't get registered until I see their name come through in online training. And then, of course, you as the supervisor will need to request authorization for inspectors listed on the training notification. So here's a little bit of the processing time that I was talking about. So if we do, if you're looking for a training date that is on the 2nd here, they have to complete online training by this Wednesday at 9 a.m. You'll receive notification this day. It gives you a couple of days, especially the 50-ish% of you who work with contractors, You might have to email the contractor might have to get back to you. It takes a little bit of processing time for us to be able to communicate with you and you to be able to communicate with your contractor as well. So by 10 a.m. on Friday is generally when we need to have people registered. We can allow some additional training, but this allows for Cal or Tyler to be able to prepare for training the next day so that they know how many people are going to be there, all of that kind of stuff. You will then, at a minimum, if you don't receive training notification on Saturday night, you will receive it by Monday. So just kind of looking at, if you're looking at a Wednesday training, you're going to want to have staff complete training by Friday because we only pull training records Monday through Friday. So this is where the processing time kind of kicks in. Final training notification this day. If you're looking for a Friday training process is there. As Tina mentioned, we will have new manuals this year. So the old manuals, you can recycle them. Please do. They are currently with our creative services. Once we get them back and they're printed and they're available, we'll reach out. Cal and Tyler, of course, will have additional manuals that they can give you at in-person trainings. But then we can also mail out from our regional offices as well. And then the last thing I want to cover, I know I'm almost right on the very end here, is we are going to offer again this year specialized training. So this is as requested. If people, and as long as we have capacity to be able to do this, we would offer additional training on decontamination, maintenance, and winterization, wake sport decontaminations, policies, procedures, clarifications. If you're having a team meeting and you want DNR support there, please just reach out to us. If you want us to meet a one-on-one with inspectors, there's also some of that as well. AS identification or other topics related to inspection or decontamination. Just let us know. I will reach out generally towards the end of May, maybe early June, to see if anybody wants any kind of specialized training. And you can reach out to us at that time as well if you have any thoughts or questions about any of that kind of stuff. Any questions about training?
There is one question in the chat for you, Janine. Are there any protocols for inspectors that might work in multiple counties? I'm guessing protocols like for registering for trainings and such.
Yeah, so not so much as they have to be authorized, of course, in each of those counties. But there isn't like a specialized like process or any of that kind of stuff. They can just generally one LGU supervisor needs to reach out to us to sign someone up for an in-person training.
Go ahead, Matt.
Just clarify, what do you mean they need to be authorized in each county? What does that mean?
So authorized in each county. So each county needs to request authorization for that inspector, and it has to be listed on their authorization letter. So
departure from the past?
What was that last little bit? Sorry.
I just said, is that a departure from what's been occurring in the past? Or
nope, that's always been our protocol throughout, that they have to be authorized for each county.
So if they're my employee, but they work in Ramsey County, I have to have Ramsey County authorize my inspector as well?
No, because wherever your district ends, so you're a bit different, Matt. So if your district is that jurisdiction, right? So you have that jurisdiction within Ramsey County through your organization. You don't? Okay, then we should get them authorized.
So like we share inspection, I mean, that same thing will
Yeah.
hold true then for Chisago and Comfort Lake.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we're helping Ramsey County with them. A couple of lakes have shared jurisdiction, but at least one of them is completely in Ramsey County. But
Okay.
it's inside a watershed district that shares both. I don't know. Anyway, we can
Yeah,
talk.
we'll talk. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Janine? Otherwise, you can always email her, and she'll be emailing you. All right. We're going to take a few minute breaks and keep us on schedule here. So take a quick break. We'll be back at 10:05 to talk about partnering across borders. All right. So we have let's start spotlighting our presenters here for our first panel on partnering across borders. So you can see the rest of our meeting here today is panel. So we'll have 20 minutes for this panel. I'll just stop sharing my screen there. So Liz, I see you on first. So I'm going to pick on you and say, if you want to kick us off for this, that'd be great.
Sounds good. I do have a quick slide that maybe I'll try to share.
You should have permission. Yep. We're seeing it. Yay.
Okay. Are you seeing the slideshow?
We're seeing the full PowerPoint application, not the slideshow.
How about
now? Now it's the other, the speaker version. Of course.
Now?
There we go. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So John is also on this panel,
yeah.
and we are the collaborators across counties. So we do watercraft inspections for each other. So just a kind of geographical context, St. Louis County is on the left and Lake County is on the right. And I forgot to put the North St. Louis SWCD border on there, but it's just below those green accesses in St. Louis County. And so they cover the northern part of Lake County for us, and we do some inspections in the southern part of their district. So there's no cities in northern Lake County, so we would be pulling inspectors from Ely, which is here, for inspectors to cover those accesses in northern Lake County. So it's worked really well for us to contract with North St. Louis SWCD to do those inspections. And then a couple of years ago, we started doing inspections for them in the southern part of St. Louis County, which is closer to our home base in Two Harbors. And we also have, most of our inspectors are on Lake Superior, and when the big lake gets windy or foggy, we send our inspectors inland, but there's only a few lakes nearby. So it's nice to have a couple other options in St. Louis County for our inspectors to go when the weather is not great on the big lake. And then just a comparison of the numbers, because we do about 90 hours of inspections for North St. Louis SWCD, and they do close to 600 for us. So it's a little uneven, but it's worked pretty well for us in the past. So yeah, that's just a little overview.
All right. I'll pick on Erin and Callie. You guys are a collaboration of sorts.
Yeah, good morning. This is Aaron from Hubbard County here. If you don't know where Hubbard County is, think of the headwaters of the Mississippi River, Lake Itasca State Park. We like to claim it as our own, although 90% of the park is within Clearwater County, but we'll just ignore that a little bit. You have to get through Hubbard to get there, so we're taking it. But as far as our program goes, really we are inspection based. By large, most of our funding goes to watercraft inspections at our lake accesses. It's kind of our bread and butter. As far as working with our partners, we do use a staffing agency. Always they're staffing out of Bemidji. This does allow us some flexibility through that staffing agency. Like Beltrami County, for instance, they use the same staffing agency. Wadena County uses the same staffing agency. Particularly with Wadena, the bulk of our lakes are in the southern half of our county. Therefore, we do share all of our inspectors with Wadena County. They can work in Hubbard and Wadena. So when it comes to trainings, etc., we can share a lot of that cost, a lot of those training dates. We can just kind of loop together for our two organizations, which works really well as far as getting people up to speed and ready for fishing opener, the inspection season. So that works really well for us. Some inspectors only want to work a few days a week. Some want that full 40 hours. So, if we only have a certain number of hours at Hubbard County, you know, there's more hours to pick up in Wadena or vice versa. So that works out well for the inspectors as well. Other ways too, you know, we don't really have any lakes necessarily that share borders per se, or a lot of the bigger lakes anyway, with other counties. But you know, if we have fishing tournaments or whatnot on a specific lake like Plantagenet, which does just kiss the Beltrami County border a little bit there, just sharing that information like, hey, we're expecting more boats this day at these specific times. Just an FYI heads up, that we can cover our bases. Um, you know, we do get a lot of boat traffic from Bemidji down to Plantagenet, for instance. In those cases, with just having that information on hand on decontamination unit up in Beltrami County and what those hours of operation are, we like to give our inspectors those business cards for the different counties, just so there's closer options for watercraft users than coming all the way down in Park Rapids, which is admittedly not centralized for the county at all. So that's kind of the basis for us. Otherwise, you know, Steve Henry has reached out in the past to like, hey, I got a bulk order of aquaweed sticks coming up. Do you want any? And it's like, heck yeah, get me in on that. So that's kind of how we do things here in Hubbard County. So, Callie, go for it. Add to it.
Hi, everybody. I'm Callie. I work for Beltrami County and I'm based in Bemidji. So, like Erin said, pretty similar. We have used an inspector from Hubbard in the past, and then also from Clearwater. So, it has been nice just to have that staffing agency to be able to work with. So sharing inspectors has been a big thing, and then communicating local decons in the area too. So whenever, for whatever reason, if we're not available, then having the option to send them to the next closest county has been really great. And then I guess just in general, I just started in May, so I think collaborating across county borders and with the tribes in Beltrami County has been extremely helpful just in getting to know the program and how inspectors do their job and how to better support them. And then Steve Henry also helped me install a bunch of cleaning tool signs too. So truly just connecting with neighbors has been so helpful. I mean, we're all doing the same work, so why not do it together?
Thanks, Erin and Callie. And Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks everybody. I'm Mike. I'm with Lake of the Woods Soil and Water Conservation District. And unlike the other partners, my partner is not here today. But I hope that doesn't reflect negatively on me. Are you guys seeing kind of the main slide?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Unlike the other ones you kind of heard from, this is Lake of the Woods and Roseau County. And so you see Lake of the Woods is really the main lake in both of these counties. There are some other smaller lakes probably in Roseau County that get recreated, but there are no other lakes in Lake of the Woods. So you can see kind of those four. There's maybe another location over in Warroad too that gets inspected some, but these are the main location sites on one major lake. So it really makes sense for us to partner together with our inspection program. So you know, all of Lake of the Woods that's in the US is in Lake of the Woods County. So we're very fortunate to have a partner that wants to help us with that. Kind of the reason why we started partnering is this is kind of the financial amount that we get for the AIS prevention aid. And so with that amount, it really makes sense to kind of partner. And Lake of the Woods is infested with spiny waterford lee and zebra mussels, although no adults have been found yet. Recent years, we have about 5 to 6 inspectors total. So really, and they're split about 50-50, but we do about 2,500 hours of inspections annually. You know, over the 10 years, we've done over 70,000 inspections together. And we too also contract with Always There Staffing. We have separate contracts, but our wage scale is the same, and inspectors can inspect kind of on both sides of the border, but usually we have kind of, if the inspector's in one county, they talk to either myself or Scott Johnson from Roseau County, depending on where they're at. But we can cover for each other, so we kind of collaborate on those things as well. And then, just with like inspector meetings, we kind of do that together. We have committee meetings that we do together, and outreach and educational materials as well. So we kind of do a gambit of things together, but a lot of that I think we do because it just makes sense when you're in a smaller office with smaller dollar amounts. You kind of have to get creative with some of that. So I think that's really the main reason why we started doing it. But we also have that large lake, so it just makes sense to kind of share resources. And Lake of the Woods, or I'm in Badette, and Scott is in Roseau. It's only about an hour away, and from site to sites, it's maybe a half hour to 45 minutes. So that's kind of what Lake of the Woods and Roseau counties do.
Everyone. I've got a couple panel questions for y'all, so feel free to just answer these. You kind of answered a little bit of this first one here, but if you want to dive a little bit more into detail, how do you coordinate among partners and identify those shared priorities?
Yeah, I guess I can take this one. John Utek with North St. Louis Soil and Water Conservation District. And our district is kind of unique as far as we're just so geographically spread out. We have over 5,000 square miles to cover and over 150 different lakes with the public access. So when it comes to partnering with Liz, it just makes sense. We have pockets of high population areas like Ely, Virginia, two harbors on the Lake County side. So utilizing those staffing opportunities is essential in making our program successful. And then we also collaborate with Kuchaching on the northern end. So we're responsible for Voyager National Park, and Kuchaching and I Falls provides inspectors from their sector. So just collaborating with each other as a geographical area, it makes sense for us.
One way that we coordinate, well, this was organized by Raining White with Leech Lake Band. He organized a meeting between Beltrami, the tribe, Cass, Itasca, and we all sat down and met and spoke about the season, what worked, what didn't, how our inspectors were doing. And that was very, very useful. It was great information just for us to all get together at the end of the season. And I think that could be something that we continue to do annually. But that was really helpful in identifying like what is working, what our priorities are for the next season and whatnot. So I think just opening up conversations is like the biggest thing among partners.
Yeah, I guess I would echo probably both those things. I mean, obviously, you see Lake of the Woods, the geography is a main driver for priority, but then also similar to what Callie says, we have a AIS committee that meets, and so both SWCDs are a part of that committee, and for Lake of the Woods, and then we kind of communicate that way on similar priorities for the inspection program and things like that.
Yeah, ditto for a lot of that. Just even knowing what other groups are doing for, their inspection schedules, like what makes sense for them. What do the inspectors like as far as a schedule format? What hours of the day, and how does that jive with the data? Can go a long way into just kind of maximizing our efforts while we're out in the field on the inspection program side of things. So what obviously what works in one county doesn't always work in the other, just because of the lake use in general. but by and large, just getting an idea, a rough sense of, hey, this really works for our county. The inspectors seem to be on board with, our days of operation. Certainly helps to know all that. Or, the different lakes that are joining the counties. All of a sudden, oh, we got starstone wort in this lake that's close by. Zebra mussels are discovered here. Just an FYI. That way we can pass that on, information on to our inspectors. Just keep in the back of their head. So.
All right, I'll ask another question. It's just different ways of asking the same question, I feel like, because, what advice would you have for other people interested in starting a collaborative?
I could take a stab at this. So I think in our region, we do a lot of collaboration and a lot of communication about all aspects of our programs. So for us, it was just easy to, stay in communication and find out what other folks' needs are. In our case, for when we started doing the inspections in the southern part of St. Louis County, it was one of my inspectors who came to me and said, hey, we need some more opportunities to go inland when the weather's bad. What about these lakes in St. Louis County? And so after he brought that to me at the end of the season, I started that conversation with John, like, hey, is this a possibility? So I think the opportunities can come from a lot of different places.
I think a lot of it just stems from identifying what your program goals are. A lot of us have the same goals, they can be a little different from, okay, our priority here is, let's say, prevention, while another organization might be, well, our priority is let's keep what AIS we have where it is, containment more. So just opening up those conversations based on, okay, what are our goals and objectives as a county or SWD, SWCD, etc. A lot of our goals mesh, and what are ways that your program is achieving those goals? Where do you feel like you're falling short? Just opens up those conversations.
Yeah, I think not only cross-county partnerships, but even partnerships within your own organizations and own areas of responsibilities. There's lots of organizations out there who are willing to help. They just don't know how to help. So opening up those lines of communication and offering opportunities for them, may not be a signed contract. It may just be a handshake agreement saying, we'll help you with this. What do you need help with? Volunteer this. So just opening up communication and keeping those lines of communication open often and frequently.
Yeah, I would add to that as well, just working with lake associations and those local organizations beyond our county neighbors or our tribal neighbors, I think is super valuable, even just in identifying what their needs are. If they are looking for increased hours at their lake, I have one in particular that is uninfested and they are devoted to making sure that their access is staffed 7 days a week. So we work with them and kind of cost sharing the cost of inspection hours. So I think lake associations have a big play too, and definitely should not count them out of the conversation too.
Yeah, lake associations are a huge part of our program in Hubbard County.
Yeah.
They going through the numbers this year, when we do our funding drives to get supplemental hours on our lakes, we actually Got a new record this spring as far as how many dollars are being put towards from the lake associations and the townships and the cities to our program. We went over the $200,000 mark for the first time this year. It's insane. It blows my mind how much they contribute each year. But not only that, from a staffing side of things, but they come out willing to on some of these smaller lakes where I just don't have a whole lot of data on. That may not support increasing hours there. It's like, hey, guys, let's put the onus on the Lake Association. Count cars, have people just do drive-bys every once in a while on lake accesses. Are there days we're missing that are busier than others? They're just a huge, invaluable resource. So absolutely, that's kind of in the boundaries, internal boundaries, but it's organizational boundaries. Absolutely.
Wonderful. All right. Well, let's take maybe just a couple minutes. If anyone else on the call here has advice on people interested in starting a collaborative or share a little about a collaborative you might have, go ahead and do that. And then we'll move on to our enforcement topic at 10:30. Don't all unmute at once. Go ahead, Spencer.
Hey everyone, I guess I just got kind of an idea or think. Well, we're gonna have to probably think more about collaboration when we look at the 2027 budgets. So I just want to put that in people's minds, the reduction in aid that's going to happen in 27. So we'll be sending out a survey to the state AIS committee to all of you planners here, hopefully in a month or so, to gauge your sense of what that's going to impact your program and what that's going to be like. So thanks.
Thanks, Spencer. There's a couple in the chat that Carver County has several lakes with public accesses owned by the Three Rivers Park District. The park funds their own inspections within the county there. And then Alicia added that lake associations also contribute to their program. They double their hours that we can contract for. So in partnerships at all scales are incredibly important and will be even more important moving forward, in summary. So yeah, Alicia, go ahead.
Oh, just one other thing with the paid family medical lead. In talking to my lawyers about how to incorporate it in the contract, they said just leave it alone. It's your contractor's problem. So they can adjust their rate for it, but just leave that to them. We have a method for earned sick and safe time that is not like they bill us directly for earned sick and safe time, but with paid family medical leave, just leave that to your staffing agency. So at least that's what my lawyers say. Check with your lawyers.
Thanks for that note too, Alicia. All right, we are going to move on to our enforcement topic. So let's see who's all on the call here today. You just want to pop your cameras on. It might be easier for me to find you guys. Okay, found Chad. Found Keith. Okay. Keith. I'll start spotlighting people here, but Chad, if you just want to take things away and introduce yourself and your team, go for it.
Yep. I'm Lieutenant Chad Tessing, Conservation Officer, Minnesota DNR Enforcement Division. I head up a group of, they're called EEOs, Environmental Enforcement Officers, that specialize in wetlands, public water issues, invasive species, deer farm, game farm, fur farm issues, and commercial issues. So they're regular conservation officers, but then they handle some of the behind the scenes work once a regular conservation officer starts the process, then they kind of pass it off to my guys. My guys will also explain a little bit more what we do, and I'll kind of let them take it from here. I think Rob Haberman would be the last one that you need to find.
Found him.
There we go.
That's the story of my life.
I'd like to explain a little bit about what a normal conservation officer does, and then what we do. I guess I was a normal or a station conservation officer for many years. I had a smaller area than I do now. I had Todd County, about half of it, so I would call Todd County a medium-sized county. I would say that's a pretty average patrol area for us. During that time, we had responsibilities of like checking hunters and fishermen and snowmobilers and ATVers, and maybe a common day in the summer was checking some fishermen out of a boat and some boaters, and then stopping a few four-wheelers for something wrong, maybe going to a nuisance bear complaint on the way. It was kind of a jack of all trades type of deal. They do a lot of safety education classes, the normal COs, as well as AIS is part of their cool hours for that. I took this EEO position, or environmental enforcement officer position, about 7 months ago. That's a bigger area. I cover a quarter of the state now. We each cover a quarter of the state, and we have three main focuses. One is like deer farm inspections and fur farm inspections, so some captive animal stuff. One is like wetland and public water enforcement, so we're by the lakes a lot. And then another main one is AIS. Along with our AIS patrol that we normally do, we kind of do a lot of higher end stuff, like set up road check stations, set up saturation details, do AIS law enforcement for deputies, stuff like that. And we're I guess, called the subject matter experts for the local COs to come to if they have questions on AIS.
Dan, were you going to maybe talk about the next issue, or who is next?
I can go, Chad.
Okay.
So my name's Kylan. So just like Keith, I cover another quarter of the state. So if you can picture Keith's old area in Todd County, Stearns County, all the way going through the metro and all the way down to southeastern Minnesota, that would be my area. And I think it was alluded to in Keith's discussion. One, I think, issue that we face division-wide is, specifically as it pertains to AIS enforcement, is if you think about 200 officers spread across every single county, what that means in the summertime, especially, or in the spring, is there are a lot of lakes and areas that simply might not get covered in a day-to-day patrol. The one thing that we offer as EEOs is we are able to present or give post training. Post just means peace officers, standards, and training, which all of us as police officers need a certain amount of credit hours, just like continuing education, over the cycle of your licensing year every 3 years. And one of the things that we offer is training for sheriff's deputies at the various counties, to not only give them some of the laws, which truthfully the laws are fairly easy to understand. The bigger issue is, I think, more identification and identify the particular species that we are concerned about. And so that outreach portion of it is we can go to a county. So I live in Hennepin County, for example. I can go to Water Patrol. I can administer this 2-credit training, show them some examples of various violations that we do see, along with some of the patrol tactics and considerations that you can use to take enforcement action. Right? We have the ability to write citations. We have the ability to write warnings. Each officer has that different discretion. We give some examples of what to think about there. That way, once those officers have gone through that training, the amount of officers exponentially grows throughout the state that we can have focus on AIS. And I believe there's some, depending on the county and depending on the county budgets and depending on what other funding they get, that's a shift opportunity for officers that want to take part in that, to spend time in a particular area and go patrol. So not only that, another aspect that we can do, not just with sheriff's deputies, is working with the various counties or watershed districts. I saw Matt with Washington County on the call here. I was there last week, I believe, or it could have been this week. I don't remember exactly, but we were working on next year's AIS plan, and one aspect of that is the enforcement. So that's a bit of the outreach that we can do as EEOs throughout the state.
And with the joint powers agreements, always encourage your officers, if you are offering
some of these overtime shifts, or if your officers get a call from your county inspectors to go out there, this training is ideal for that. As Kylan said, we if the officer's comfortable enforcing it, um, you'll see better results on that end, especially when you get the calls from our county partners on that. So I encourage you to reach out to us depending on your region. I have the Northeast region, so Northeast Minnesota, but we do help each other out. So if Keith, Dan, or Kylan's not available, I can jump in. Same vice versa. We can all do the training on there. Again, just reach out to your sheriff's office if they are interested. You know, go through us and we can get that training. They might ask cost. It's free. We don't charge for it. We never have. So we come down. It's 2 hours of continuing education for them. So yeah, we can get you, I see some stuff in the chat here. We can get you our contact information and even a map to kind of show you our coverage area on there.
So I'll jump in. My name is Daniel Bumbarger. I'm an environmental enforcement officer. I cover the southwest corner part of the state of Region 4. So all of us cover a different region. So Keith is in Region 1, Rob's Region 2, Kyle in Region 3, and myself in Region 4. So part of that cooperative relationships we do is the enforcement action once a violation has been detected either by state inspectors, county inspectors, or even some of the lake associations have their own inspectors or inspector groups. So when we talk about that, first and foremost, we want to not get in confrontations with these people, as we know it can sometimes get heated between boaters or fishermen and the inspectors. But we do want to gather good information. We want to get names if able, but definitely license plate numbers of the vehicle, registration numbers of the watercraft, and then some good pictures, just good documentation, because a lot of times, as I believe as Rob stated, we're kind of spread all over the state, or it was actually Kylan. And so there's not always an officer at every lake or possibly even nearby. So we want to gather as good information as we can, because a lot of these will be follow-up performed either by us or most likely the station officer. So get that good information. As far as what to do with that information, and let's say it's a zero muscle violation, we're going to want to get that information reported to Tina Fitzgerald, and then she will forward that to Chad. And then Chad will disseminate that out to the station officer where that lake is for follow-up. And then once some sort of enforcement action's taken, whatever that may be, that'll get reported back to Chad and kind of back. Any kind of milfoil violations, things of that nature, we're like those to go to the county sheriff's office for follow-up. And I know a lot of inspectors have a working relationship with their local conservation officer, and it can be reported directly to them, but we like it to be reported through that chain of Tina to Chad, so that we can make sure the violation is followed up on and it doesn't get lost in the busy day-to-day call load. So any questions on that procedural stuff from anybody or clarification?
I can talk a little bit too about, I think one of the questions that has come up in the past is how do we decide when to write a ticket or when to write a warning? So like a scenario I can think of is if an inspector is checking a boat over, initially we look, you glance under, is there weeds hanging? Is, obvious violations going on? That might be more in line of a ticket. If you're doing your thorough inspection, you're feeling underneath, behind license plate holders. I mean, you find one zebra mussel tucked way under. A normal person maybe wouldn't see that, other than if you're doing 100% check and nobody can really do that. That's probably more lines of a warning. All these are followed up after the fact. So by the time it gets sent through to the station officer, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 days, if not a week or two. And then you try to make contact with that person, try to call them by phone. A lot of times somebody's up in Osakis, but they live down in Maplewood. So try to make a phone call initially. If that doesn't work, try to get the Maplewood station officer to go knock on the door and say, hey, you remember using Osakis Lake on July 1st? Remember talking to the inspector? Do you remember them finding a zebra mussel? All right. You know where that came from? How did you miss it? You know, each case is a case by case basis on whether a lot of factors go into it, how we write a ticket or a warning. So quite often, I think it probably ends up being a warning because it's usually kind of a smaller, hard to find deal. Obviously, if it's caked, then that's probably more lines of a ticket. But sometimes they come from storage. It's been in storage for all winter. So these zebra mussels come and they're dead. That's going to be case by case, whether that's a ticket or a warning, and it's kind of hard to say.
I see some messages in the chat about how receptive our county and law enforcement for doing things. And it looks like it's a little variety of some want to be involved, some don't want to be involved, some will do stuff. Law enforcement in general, as of late, has been pretty short staffed and we're spread thin, whether it's conservation officers or county deputies, city officers, etc. But if you have a working relationship and you know that your county is not doing anything, they're not following up on these violations when they're being reported, or they just come right out and say, yeah, we don't have the interest or the time. Let's not let that fall short and maybe get that, to Chad or somebody so that we can try to get conversations with those different departments. Maybe if you have a problem area, we can get the local conservation officer involved just to make sure there's some more saturation. Let's say you have a lake that, I don't know, some sort of weed just blows up in June, it's suddenly there's a lot of violations, reach out, let us know those so we can try to make some of that a priority so we're not having things fall through the cracks.
I would say in general, a regular police officer or sheriff's deputy is a little bit hesitant to deal with some of this stuff because it's a little bit foreign to them. They're used to writing a speeding ticket. They're used to going to a domestic. They're used to dealing with their day-to-day loud music complaints, but they may only get 1 or 2 of these a year and maybe one every 2, 3 years. So they're hesitant because they don't really know the law. So by us putting on these classes for them, hopefully it makes them a little bit more familiar. We can let them know it's not that big of a pull to do a quick investigation and write a ticket or a warning. So that's where that training comes into it. Quite often there's going to be at least 1 or 2 boating officers per county. They're going to get that training when they go to boating school that we put on at Camp Ripley. So somebody in the county should be familiar with that. And if you pass this information on to a regular deputy and they express that they don't really know how to handle this, you can explain to them, maybe talk to your water patrol people and see if they know how to deal with this a little bit better. And that might help as well.
And I'll touch real quick. I don't know if Rust is on the call or not, but with lake service providers, we have, especially in my area, in the Brainerd Lakes area, we have a ton of lake service providers. So if your inspectors are running into a lake service provider that you're constantly having issues with, please reach out to April Rust or your local CO or your regional watercraft inspector supervisor, and we could do some follow-up on that. I know I do a lot of follow-up with that. They all get training unless they're not a licensed lake service provider. So they know the rules, they know what they're supposed to do. So please let us know if your inspectors are running into this. A lot of times these violations they're coming back to the lake with dirty equipment, or they're not just letting you inspect because they're in a hurry. We understand that busy season, spring and fall, but they're not exempt from a lot of these things. Hauling the equipment away with zebra mussels. Yes, they can do by permit, but they can't drag half the lake weeds with them when they leave the access. They know better than that. So if you're running into these issues, let us know, and we can definitely do some follow-up. Our local COs can do some follow-up on that. Again, April Russ is our coordinator for LSP, so she does their permitting on that. So let's see. Tina had some stuff in there. So yeah, just I wanted to bring up lake service providers because again, we run into these. So, and let us know if you see someone doing kind of this work, your inspectors are seeing some of this work and you don't see the stickers on the vehicle on there. Let us know because there's people that are trying to cheat the system and do this type of work without going through the licensing. It's $50 for 3 years. I mean, it's not that difficult and it's an online training. So we'd like to know about this.
Rob, that's a good point that I think we could post to the EEOs here. Do any of you know if an AIS inspector is able to ask for some sort of a proof for an LSP? I think probably not, but could they at least ask the question, oh, are you a lake service provider and who do you work for? What are your thoughts on that? Because that, along with the sticker, just simply asking someone that appears to be a lake service provider, asking them directly, who do you work for, I think could also help. Do you, any of you four here know the answer to that? Or anyone else on the call?
I don't think it. Oh, sorry, Tina.
Yeah, sorry, Robert. We in our manuals instruct have like different steps. Like if you see the windshield sticker, great, you're good. If you don't see it, you can ask them. If they don't have their permit, do they have their, there's kind of steps as far as what they can ask, but we do instruct them to engage with lake service providers and ask them for their permit. If that's not the right direction to go, let us know. We can connect separately and make sure we're giving the right kind of guidance on that. Because I know in the past on a different thing, like we had inspectors asking herbicide applicators for their permit, and that is not their role. But for lake service providers, they have specific inspection requirements related to the inspection program and protocols. We feel that connects enough for us to be able to ask those questions about their permit and their operations.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I think that's the direction to give personally.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, and we've clarified that too in our manual updates as well. So I'll get that reviewed by you folks too, just to make sure we're all on the same page. So
I noticed Bree has a question. It says, how many tickets were issued and how many contacts were made last year from a follow-up through Tina to me? Tina might have these exact numbers, but I would say, let's just say roughly 200 violations came in through me. I sent them out to the staff and I got word back on one way or the other, ticket or warning or nothing. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tina, but I would say if we had 200, 125, 130 were followed up on with a ticket or a warning. Sometimes we get a license plate number that's off by a number and we just can't go any further with it. Sometimes we try to make contact several times and we can't make contact. But I would say probably 60% at least, maybe.
Yeah, you're right on
70.
You're right on there, Chad. It's 60% of reports had enforcement results last year. And the most challenging, of course, is Bree's region and Medicine Lake, I think, had the most violation reports of any location ever. And so Region 3 had 89 inspector reports, whereas all the other regions had 20, 28, 2. So it's also challenging when we get so many violations to be able to have that one local officer follow up on all of those. It's just not feasible. And so, we've been thinking as a program, how might we prioritize different violations that come through and say, like, these ones we're not as concerned about. It was like, Chad, as you said, a zebra mussel hidden away and they were really compliant versus the encrusted boat that someone was very belligerent about that might need more significant follow-up. So by reading those really good and detailed reports from the inspectors, we can kind of decipher which ones need to get priority follow-up on. So just another emphasis that fill out that form really completely. We have a violation report form that has all the information that enforcement needs. And I compile that and send it along to Chad along with the data and photos from the inspection survey. So really important to fill that out as detailed as you can.
Tina, this is Dan again. I sent you an email. I don't know if you can open that up and share it. Just shows our coverage area. Just if whoever's on the call here wants to, maybe jot down who's covering. I know that was a question earlier. Maybe that could just be shared via email later, but
I'll do both.
okay.
Just
Here's the map now, and we can continue our conversation.
Yeah, so again, Region 1 is going to be Keith Bertram. Region 2 would be Rob Haberman. That's the R1, R2s. R3 would be Kylan, and then Region 4 would be myself. So if you're, in those areas, you can jot that down, and obviously we can get you contact information, phone number, email, etc. for those that want it.
And just a heads up, it's per color, not per red line, I believe. So the yellow of Cass County, even though it shows in Region 1, is actually covered by Region 2, and there's some other anomalies around Todd County and, I don't know, Houston County or what that Southeast County is, but
Fillmore. Mm-hmm.
So there are a little bit overlap, and if you get the wrong person, it's not a big deal. Either they can handle it or they can forward it to the person that should be handling it.
Tina, a quick question. Can you, I know this is a good slide here, but are you able to pull back those numbers up one more time on the chart? So a real quick comment on those numbers. So I'm guessing there's a lot of people in the call that are thinking, why only one citation? I think one of the successes of the program is if you consider recidivism rates among people that are found in violation of zebra mussels, particularly, usually, and this is, I know a lot of anecdotal opinions here, I don't think we have many repeat offenders that once they are found with like a zebra mussel violation at a launch and it's reported and we take enforcement action, very rarely, if ever, do we see that same person again. And so one of the goals of, I think, policing in general is to prevent further crime or further violations to happen, understanding that we know that humans are humans and they're going to make mistakes. I will make one comment though on that. I don't know if we have the numbers, but if you took all of the numbers of the people that denied an inspection or refused to even interact with the inspector or things like that, I'm guessing that citation number is significantly higher. One thing to remember is when someone has a vote in the state of Minnesota, by putting that registration sticker on and going into the lake, they're thereby agreeing to allow an AIS inspector to inspect their boat. And so when they deny that, or if they put up some sort of a fight, or the one I have in mind last year where he spoke of all of these freedoms that he has to not be bugged by the government, and that includes AIS inspectors, we really don't have time for that nonsense. That's childish. So I want everyone to know that that's probably a much higher number if you interact with an individual that just simply doesn't want to be inspected. We take that pretty seriously.
Yep, and we're updating our manuals to better document, better outline how to document a refusal, because those can be sometimes dangerous or really high conflict situations. So we're not taking pictures during refusals. We're just writing down information and then sending it into me again through that process. So we'll make sure I only received about 6 refusals records this year. I'm guessing that's a lot more on the landscape. These were pretty egregious ones, as you mentioned, Kylan, that particular one. And so we're trying to better document refusals of inspection as well as refusals of decontamination. So we've outlined that better in our manuals for this year.
I just had one comment on the citations too. Excuse me, when we issue a citation, we have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And I know I've had hurdles over the years where you get a plate number, you get a Watercraft number, but you don't know who the driver was. You know, it could have been the registered owner of the vehicle, but he said it was his son-in-law, and now we can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. Therefore, we can't write a citation. When we're there, if we would encounter that, we have the right to identify somebody and do that, but your Watercraft inspectors don't. So that might be another reason why these numbers are somewhat low.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were a few, like we couldn't follow up because the plates didn't match or the registration didn't match, or so again, data accuracy, very important. All right, we've got a couple more minutes. Any more burning questions for our enforcement staff here today? Matt, oh, I see raised hands. I'm sorry, I missed. Okay, Krista, you go first. You've had your hand raised for a bit. I apologize.
Had to figure out my mute button.
Yep.
So we had that issue last year on one of our accesses with a refusal, and the gentleman actually got quite verbal with our inspectors, and we ended up calling the sheriff's office.
Yep.
Because he got in the inspectors' faces and they felt quite unsafe.
Yep.
Is this something that you as the EEOs should be also called on, because he ended up launching and then he parked obviously his trailer in the access, and so the inspectors felt unsafe there all day because they didn't know when he was going to come back out, and they weren't going to inspect his boat when he came out because he was going to be the same way when he came out. And he ended up taking pictures of the inspectors throughout the season, posted them on Facebook pages, and just this guy was something else. So how does a situation like that get handled?
I would say the first call would be your local police or sheriff's department, depending on jurisdiction. They'll be able to get there the fastest, and that's more up their alley at that point. You can also notify us as well. Specifically, if you have a working relationship with your local CO, you can try to reach out personally like that as well. But I think if it's an emergency or you really feel threatened, 911. If not, non-emergency number.
Yeah, which is what we did. It really shook up the inspectors, and it was prior to the 4th of July, so then it shook them up for the entire season.
Yep, and that can happen. So, like I've always preached over these years, when I've come to trainings for inspectors and working with our inspectors and everybody, if you're concerned for your safety, just leave. Tell your inspectors, just pack up and leave. Call the authorities. If the local CO is around, they can help out too. So always leave. It's the best management practice. Our job is to deal with people like theirs, your inspectors and yourself. No, you don't need to deal with that. You just leave. I was going to bring up one thing. We do have canines. If you've never seen them work, our zebra mussel dogs, excellent tools at some of our check stations. I've seen them find zebra mussels that we would have missed with the naked eye. So very cool. So Captain Phil Mose is our canine coordinator. If you have a public event, AIS stuff, I know our canine officers are very eager to do these public speaking things. You'll see them at the state fair. So we don't coordinate that as EOs, but Lieutenant Tessing can reach out to Captain Mose, or Tina can even reach out to him for your public speaking events.
Yep.
But yes,
yeah.
Very
if
cool
you want
to see.
canines, just email me and I'll get in contact with Phil. So
All right. Thanks, Tina.
they're awesome. They're so cool. We're going to try to have them at more workshops this summer too. So, all right, Matt, last question. Go for it.
Yeah, thanks, Tina. I guess it's kind of a comment rather than a question, but just, kind of want to throw it out there since I have a platform at the moment. But, there was a little bit of discussion on lake service providers, and just something that I've been talking with, kind of DNR, implementation staff, is just making my perspective, at least, I guess, is that I do think we're woefully underestimating the scope of that problem. And I just want that kind of known. Tina presented some great data earlier on, we did like almost 500,000 inspections, but there was only like 800 lifts stuff inspected. There's virtually no inspections occurring in April, October, November, well, that's when lake service providers are most active. So like we as a group are just not interacting with that population of lake users very effectively. Washington County, we had 3 new infestations last year, all 3. I mean, I can't scientifically prove it, but all 3 were caused by lake service providers. One of them doesn't even have a public launch. Like that one is 100% lake service providers. So, yeah, just kind of want to throw that out there as like, food for thought on, how we collectively as a group kind of start addressing that issue. Because I do think we're not being effective on our end because we just don't interact with them. Not often. They don't follow the same rules that maybe the rest of the boating public does, where we're, I think, really good at interacting with the rest of the boating, the lake users. So just kind of a thing I wanted to throw out there and get maybe a reaction to if we have a second for it. So.
Another good thing too is if you hear of some, and especially in my area, we had starry stonewort. In fact, Rush Lake on the Whitefish chain here in Cross Lake, an access that boaters don't use, but because lake service providers want to avoid inspectors, they started using this access, and it really was intent for a one-way walk-in type access. Can't prove it was them, but who else was using this thing? So if you have an access or you hear something where lake service providers are trying to use it to avoid inspectors, let us know, let the regional inspectors know, because we might have to change staff or figure out something. Again, it comes down to staffing, your staffing, our staffing, we're all shorthanded. But that's, I can beat the dead horse with lake service providers, but please let us know. Again, they're in a hurry, they don't want to be inspected, so they're going to try to do whatever they can. It's a multi-million-dollar business, and I have some LSPs that make over $1 million a year just doing this stuff, so it can happen. Just let us know.
I asked this question last year because I had a problem child LSP that I really wanted to revoke, but we can't revoke LSP licenses as long as they pay the fees and as long as they are AIS certified. There's nothing that says that they can't continue to be LSPs. So if there is one that you are very concerned about, keep us in the loop because we can keep more eyes on that. If they continue to violate or if they're trying to use secret accesses, we can keep an eye on them as best as we can.
All right. Great discussions, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our workshop here today. Really appreciate your insights. And we'll got a lot more to discuss too outside of this meeting. So we will move on to our next. Our next thing is a quick break. So we will do that. So thank you again, enforcement team. Glad to have you all on board in your new roles as EEOs. And we'll take a break. We'll take a 6-minute break. We'll come back at 11:10, and then we'll plan to go just maybe 5 minutes over to make sure we get to both the last 2 panels. So take a break until 11:10.
Thank you.
All right, it's 11:10. We'll let people get settled. Just got myself another cup of coffee. We will move on to our panel about recruiting and retaining staff. I think we'll plan to do just 20 minutes for each of the next panels so we end a little bit more on time. So with that, we've got Bree, Aaron, and Matt to talk about recruitment and retention. Like Matt, if you want to go first, I've got you spotlighted first. So if you want to just give a brief overview of kind of your program and how it's structured, and then each of the other panelists can do that too.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, thanks, Tina. My name's Matt Alford Downing. I work for Washington Soil and Water Conservation District East Metro. We've been running an inspection program since 2015, so since the start of the county, state aid prevention funding. Yeah, we're doing. I kind of highlighted in the chat a little bit earlier, just that we're doing a pretty strong partnership with a lot of local entities to implement that inspection program. Lake Association, watershed district, cities, in addition to our county partner. We are hosting all of our own staff and kind of taking a little bit different approach to how we implement inspections, things like that. And I think, the last couple of years we've had anywhere between 6 and 10 inspectors that we're employing. So yeah, I think that's probably enough of an intro. But I guess I'll just kick it to Bree since I see her next.
Sounds good. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So I'm with Three Rivers Park District. We're set up a little differently. We have over 100 inspectors across about 4 sites that we have different supervisors at that help manage all those inspectors. We hire probably 5 to 10 level 2. So we do decontaminations at 3 different locations, which is Lake Minnetonka, Medicine Lake, and then I'm at Lake Independence out in Maple Plain. At Baker, for where I'm at, we hire probably about 20 to 30 level 1 inspectors and then 1 to 3 level 2 inspectors, depending on what hours and how often they want to work during the summer. A little unique to our situation is they're not just inspecting. Our inspectors often are working in our campground. They are also renting Watercraft for our boat rental facility. At Lake Minnetonka, they might be working in a concession stand. Out at Medicine and at Fish Lake, they might be working concessions there or renting boats. So it's a little unique in that way. We oversee, I think we have about 10 launches on approximately 7 different lakes throughout Carver County and Hennepin County. So that's us. Aaron?
All righty. So kind of described earlier where Hubbard County was earlier, but as far as our staff goes, we try to get around 45 inspectors on staff per year through the staffing agency. A typical year for us will be around that 14 to 15,000 inspection hours, and that gets us around a little over 20,000 inspections per year. So not high volume by any means as far as countywide goes throughout the year, but enough for people to they stay busy enough, I guess, depending on who you ask. But we generally inspect around 30 to 35 lake accesses throughout our county. Some are hit harder than others, of course, but that's a typical inspection season for us. We try to run primarily through fishing opener, hit the ground running through Labor Day, end of September for most of our lake accesses. And then we do have a few that have enough funding that we can go out into the end of October. So that's kind of us in a snapshot.
Yeah, all sorts. Again, everyone is unique in the size and scope of their program. So got a good representation here today. So first question for you all. How do you recruit staff every year?
I can jump in on that a little bit. It is a little different now, because we have a staffing agency. They do the direct, phone calls, reaching out to people, of course. But really, you have to know, your local demographics as far as who you want to try to recruit to your program. In Hubbard County, for instance, you look at the census data, 28% of our population is age 65 and older. We have a lot of retirees. If you look at the statewide, it's more 18%. So yeah, we got a lot of old folks up around here. And so we're really kind of gunning for those folks who, if our inspectors kind of are not necessarily in that age bracket themselves, but can relate to those older folks. We get a lot of people who are looking for just part-time gigs for their minnow money, quote unquote, that they can spend throughout the year for their bait when they go fishing. So understanding your demographics, we don't have a college nearby that we can just grab a bunch of young folks from. So in that regard, we do have to hit the newspapers pretty hard, newspaper or radio advertisements. It's kind of weird. You don't really think of that old stuff as far as spending money on for recruitment, but just know your locals. That's who you should be gunning for recruitment.
So our human resource department does a lot of our recruiting for us at Three Rivers. So we do it primarily on our website, the Three Rivers website. They also always promote on Indeed also. And then last year, I went to the local high school and met with some kids during lunch. So we've done different types of pop-ups like that too. Social media, they use the League of Minnesota Cities. That's a lot of our level ones. Level twos, honestly, I think it's typically just promoting within has been our best bet for the most part.
Yeah, so this is interesting already because I can see how we're all doing it a little bit differently. So I'll just kind of throw that out there. But yeah, we're doing it different than what you just heard. So a lot of our recruiting is coming through. As I mentioned, we have a lot of strong partnerships in Washington County. That's a lot of what we're doing already with other program areas. So we definitely leverage. There's something called the East Metro Water Resource Education Program. That's an education partnership of like 40 or 50 different entities. So we are pushing things out through that. We do a lot of kind of social media influence or interacting. We are doing things like just taking flyers and putting them at public libraries, at bait shops, at kind of doing some of that work. And then actually we started our career fair season. So myself and another staff member, will be going. We went to one, last week. We'll be going to one next week. The following week, we go do that. And we're trying to do this at the same time as hiring, kind of other staff at the conservation district, and really focusing on kind of the message of, natural resource jobs, and that these things can all kind of, fill out your resume and your career, and do whatever with it. It can be just a part-time gig, or it can be, kind of a stepping stone into what you want to do with the rest of your life. So, and then additionally, I think I just heard Bree say it, but yeah, we have started kind of interacting and engaging with, high school students, things like that, to get them thinking about it for the future. We don't necessarily recruit directly from that population for, some issues with, we won't hire anybody under 18 for this job, for example, but, to get them to think about it in the future. So.
Awesome. Yeah, and if those on the call have other tips as well, feel free to toss them in the chat or raise your hand too. We're looking for any and all ideas for recruitment and retention, right? So I see, Drew, you put targeted Facebook ads and using the paid version of Handshake has helped their recruiting, wildly helped their recruiting. So another tip there. Okay, so for those that conduct interviews for your staff, I know that's Matt and Bree. Do you have interview questions you feel are most helpful in assessing their potential as an inspector?
I can go first this time. Yes. 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 I guess I'll be frank also, though, that we're part of why we're even discussing this, right? Is like we do have challenges with hiring. So some of it is just getting people in the seat, and I think there's a lot to be said of having somebody just do the interview. And one thing that we've really shied away from, not specifically the question itself, but is really not requiring, but encouraging an in-person interview. Because something that we found from, kind of the pandemic and doing everything virtually is that you don't get a good sense of how comfortable somebody is in an uncomfortable situation when you're on Zoom. And we were throwing these people, from complete virtual environment to go interact with the public on your own. So I think just that, aspect is, something I would strongly consider, or, encourage is get these people in person in front of you, both for your information and knowledge of what they're like, and also so you're being transparent with them on what the expectation is. So they're not bamboozled into thinking this job is something it's not. If they can't handle talking to me in person, I don't know how they're going to do it at the boat launch with somebody who is not going to be as pleasant as I am. That's a little bit of a shot at myself, if anybody knows me. Other than that, questions of just like we do ask people, tell us about how you resolve conflict in a professional setting. Like, tell me about a job. Another thing that I really do not want to do is teach somebody how to work. So we will say, tell me about working at McDonald's. Like, that is great experience for this job. It doesn't have to be, tell me about your plant systematics class, at the U, because like, I don't care. Like, tell me about your real world experience. So.
Yeah, I agree with Matt on the having them in person. That definitely helps. We focus a lot on just going over, like explaining what the job is and what the expectations are. Your weekend working evenings and holidays and weekends, and when everyone is off work enjoying the parks, we're in there working. So be prepared for that, because obviously setting up the expectation. We hire some younger staff for our level ones. Some of them are younger. They're not all 18. Our level twos are, but so letting them know, like, if mom and dad have cabin weekends planned every other weekend, this isn't going to work for you, So being clear about that. We do a number of situational questions, which I think helps, just kind of, even if they don't know how they should handle it or would handle it, just their thought process and what they're going to do if they're dealing with a difficult customer. Someone's asking a question about buying a pass. Someone's trying to park in the launch at the same time. What do you prioritize? And just asking for help, like we always have a supervisor on. So having them, just getting them to the point where they know that they can ask to, I think is helpful. Some basic questions like, what's your comfort level with a pressure washer when we're doing level 2, to find out what their previous experience is and how they would handle some of that. So a lot around like upset customer in difficult situations, I think, just to see how they process through, if that helps.
From DNR's experience to, if you are doing virtual questions, to ask experience questions, because if you just ask, tell me about invasive species, the use of AI and ChatGPT has skyrocketed. And so being asked questions about their experience, so they can't just type it into a machine and have the answer generated for them. Yeah, Spencer.
Yeah, our questions, there's sort of 2 rounds. They do an initial sort of write down their answers, and that's more like that's what they fill out online, and it's like, list 3 species in Otter County that are invasive. Why do you want this job? Things like that, and then those are like double blind scored and ranked, and then we call in for interviews, and then the interview questions are like, so that's like the sort of the qualification side. The in-person interview is like the fit side. So we're asking them questions that are kind of open, and it's like, describe a time when you had to interact with different generations and how you tailored your message. That's why I know these because I've had to ask these like 100 times. Or another one is, just describe the role of safety in any work that you do. Do you have any training on that? And basically, if they're not saying safety number 1, they're getting weeded out immediately. So for the most part, people are really good about that. And then the last question we ask is, why do you want to be a watercraft inspector? And you really get that sense there. But yeah, the in-person is really good. And we do kind of put them in a kind of a tough situation, because they come to the county building and you have to walk down this long hallway, and then they walk into a room and there's an interview panel of 3 of us right there. So that puts them, sort of, but a lot of them, do great there. But, if they're going to be, as Matt said, scared of us and that, I mean, how could you toss them out to thousands of people in the summertime. So that in-person thing really is important.
Thanks, Spencer. All right. So next question here. What strategies do you use to keep staff interested and engaged throughout the season, from year to year, on slow days, things of that nature, keeping staff engaged?
I can go first. We created a program a little while ago called Get It, which is kind of more focused on customer service and an acronym that stands for how to handle every guest interaction, essentially. But then we also have opportunities for staff to recognize each other with little like thumbs up awards. And we have just a door in our office covered and like, oh, you know, so-and-so got someone to do a decon when they weren't really excited about it, or so-and-so went and picked up trash because it was slow out. And then we'll email out every week who got recognized, and then, you know, do like a candy bar or something. We'll draw a name. And so that's been helpful and kind of fun, you know, kind of silly. Like, I mean, I remember getting those, like, I got caught slips in elementary school, right? But it still works for us, I guess, to say, hey, you're doing a good job. And we try to take photos too throughout the year too and throw them up on the board too. So it makes it kind of fun to look at. We do a pretty good job of just checking in with our staff throughout the season too, as I'm sure all of you do. The one thing at the end of the year, we do a season eval. Ask them a few questions, and we usually say it's more about us, less about you. Like, we want to hear what we can do to improve. And at the start of the following year, we'll list out everything staff had recommended and what we're implementing. Like, okay, we're moving to cotton t-shirts because you hated the polos. All right, we are got a funny little shade structure to try down at the launch because it's super hot there. We're going to try it out, you know. So we try to do that. We do one mid-season training. Again, our staff work all different locations, so they'll go out on Watercraft, go kind of play around out on the lake for a while, but then we do trivia with them. And it's a good time to refresh on some of the AIS rules too at that time. So those are just a couple. Oh, and we have a little snack bin in the office because everyone loves food.
Yeah, I would say that group activities are fantastic. It can be hard to do when you've got a larger organization, or you got people that are spread out all across the county. But we do try to get one group meeting together with everybody on a Wednesday when the accesses are slow, just before the 4th of July holiday, just for the inspectors to mingle, get to know each other, swap war stories, quote unquote. And also kind of as a refresher for the younger folks to get everybody on the same page prior to our busiest weekend of the year, essentially. So I think that's important on that team building, but also to keep them engaged, allow them to have input on the front end when the hiring takes place. Okay, what lake accesses are you interested in being like inspecting? Some like to bounce around, want to be flexible just so they're not looking at the same scenery all the time. But others are totally the opposite, and they're like, no, I love upper bottle. I'm familiar with it. I know where all the rocks are at the access. I can tell people about them. That's my home, and so you work with them as far as that scheduling goes, and then just make them comfortable in their job. You know, the more that they are aware of the different boat types, like what the heck a gimbal is, you know, just and the more they understand the AIS, the impacts, what they are, where to look on the boat to even do an inspection, the more comfortable they are with it, the more confident they are. And that just leads to, if I feel like I'm a good inspector, I'm more likely to inspect well and stick around. So that's my input.
Yeah, I mean, I echo a lot of what, you know, the other two just said. You know, to add to that, you know, we do try to engage them to help us with some of the other things that are occurring at the lakes that, you know, our organization is doing. So simple things like, hey, can you go read the staff page for me, you know, every time you get there and send that result in. And we do, some people like picking up trash, so we empower them to pick up trash. You know, we ask them to, you know, take a look around the access for, you know, a new infestation or stuff like that. We're out a lot. I mean, we're, in addition to this, you know, I'm out doing water quality monitoring and all sorts of other stuff. So we're just stopping at the launch a lot and engaging with the staff. asking them, hey, if it's slow, you want to jump in the boat with us, and we'll show you how to, like a Tempio profile or something like that, just to keep them interested in being there. And something we do that I don't know is super common, so I'll share it, is, we are really trying to be iterative with our staff. So, we're checking in with them constantly in a group text chain and letting them help decide how the work should look. Like, hey, what time do you need to be there to be most effective? Is that launch slow? Should you switch to somewhere else? Do some of this where they're taking a little ownership of it as well, and helping us implement an effective program. So I think all of that stuff, in addition to the stuff you just heard, we're also trying to do, monthly staff meetings, and I used to try to do like a barbecue, but I got like a whole pile of kids running around now, so that's a little harder. But things like that are things that can keep them engaged.
A couple things I thought of just as you two are talking too. We've used some of the extra trainings that you guys have provided from the DNR too. Like if it's a rain day and it's our level 2 inspector who is, more invested in the natural resources too and wants to learn about it, we'll bring him into the office and just have him take some trainings too. We will, try to do some shadowing with our natural resource department because it's kind of unique. Our natural resource department does all of our water quality testing and beach monitoring. We're in facilities, we're supervising the staff that are doing all of our inspections. So we're set up a little uniquely. So they might go shadow another employee too. So.
Yeah, others on the call have other things that weren't mentioned yet that they do to keep their staff interested and engaged. Go ahead, Spencer.
Hey, I put it in the chat, but it's basic leadership 101. Delegate down authority. They're the ones in the field. Listen to them, empower them, back them up. Let them know that you've got their backs, and they'll move mountains for you. So you just gotta let them buck.
Thanks, Spencer. All right, we'll spend just a couple more minutes here and wrap up. Some of you mentioned these already too as part of the ways you keep staff engaged, but particular team building or professional development opportunities. Yeah, Drew, go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess this kind of depends on where folks are located around, but some of the, or maybe all of the regional inspector supervisors or level 2 team, I know in our region, if they have the time, they offer allowing you to kind of pair, like for example, pair your newer level 2 with their veteran level 2. That things like that seem to be super helpful. I guess main point is don't forget about your regional supervisor, because they do have a lot to offer, especially when it comes to team building and kind of helping you get your newer staff feeling comfortable, whether it's level 1 inspector or learning new or teaching newer level 2s.
I'll just put our slide up with our regional supervisors here for everyone to see in case you didn't know who yours was. Other thoughts? Go ahead, Spencer.
Yeah, send your inspectors to the inspector workshops that the DNR put on in the summer. I chose 4 of them randomly. I said, this is your job today. You're going to drive to Brainerd, and you're going to learn a bunch of stuff. And yeah, got super positive feedback from them. I want to send all of them to those things. So they appreciated having the MACERC scientists there. They appreciated, I think I just sent them. So I don't even know what they all learned. I mean, they came back and told me, but they were super pleased with it. So those were awesome.
Yeah, and for those that hire contractors, a note. you probably already know this, but for those that might be new with contracting too, is that if you want staff to do professional development outside of the basic training, you're going to need to write that explicitly into your contract in most cases. They won't send staff to additional trainings unless you write that into the contract saying they have to send them there. We get a lot of people saying, well, 8 hours of training, that's 8 hours less at the access. You know, oh no, we missed 8 hours at the access. But in reality, you just got 200 hours of much better access coverage by going to that 8-hour training. So keep that in mind if you're contracting, to write that into your contract for team building, professional development, extra trainings, things of that nature. To just remember that extra training makes inspections better throughout the entire season. Yeah, Doug, if you have a quick comment, go ahead.
Yes, quick comment related to that. Also, we know that when you're doing your hiring processes, either through an external third-party firm or you're doing it directly, if you can, include in there that they can also do educational events.
Oh yes, yeah. So I know, yeah. So doing like education booths at other events,
Right.
to just engage different people at different places about the same thing they're doing at Watercraft at
Yep.
Water Accesses. Good point. Thanks, Doug.
Yep. Yeah,
All
it
right.
really helps out, because if you're going to festivals and fairs or other public events, you may be reaching an audience that never has received an AIS prevention message before. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. All right, so we're going to move on to data, and we're going to have Alicia go first because so thank you, panel members, for recruitment and retention. And we're going to move on to our last panel of the day, and we'll have Alicia go first because I know you have a hard cutoff at noon.
Yeah, I do. So you guys can hear me, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So hi, I'm Alicia O'Hare. I'm the Water Resource Specialist with Wrightstown Water Conservation District. AIS is just part of my job, so I kind of manage everything else water related. So when it comes to data, I'm a serious junkie. Like I've probably dived further than almost anyone into the AIS data. And let me tell you, there's 6 ways to Sunday to get useful information out of it, and some stuff that's just extra, but it's fun. But there's 3 things that I really like to focus on when I'm considering success in a change to our program. And that's number of hours or change in, number of inspections, and number of license plates, and particularly how license plates and inspections relate back to the hours. So if you have a thing where, like all of us, costs are increasing, so you have fewer hours, you want your inspections and your license plates to reflect better. So if you drop your hours by 20%, you want your inspections and your license plates to drop by less than that. So if you go from 1,000 hours to 800 hours, you don't want to go from 1,000 inspections to 700 inspections. You want to go from 1,000 inspections to 900 inspections, because you want the hours you want to cut off are the times that people aren't at the access. So, and there's a lot of different ways to doing that, and I can, happy to help out with other people as they look at finding ways to do that. But if nothing else, like just check on how your inspections per hour and your plates per hour. Plates are really important. I emphasize inspections per hour are great, but if you're not also considering how many people you're reaching, you can really lose out, because in our county, 35% of boaters only go during the weekday. So if you're not inspecting during the weekday, you're missing a bunch of people that you could talk to. That's my big spiel to start.
Thanks, Alicia. And then we've got Travis and Steve as well. Let me find them. one
I
of
guess
you
I
just
can.
want to start? Yeah, go for it.
I'll jump in.
Thanks, Steve.
I am doing things for many of the same reasons as Alicia, as you have to trim back hours, you want to maintain effectiveness, and you want to be able to tell your partners why you made an action in a specific location. Because of course many lake people are really concerned about a specific lake and not as concerned about overall. So I need a good metric. So we do look a lot at how fast are boaters moving. So risky boater movements, where are they coming from? Where are they showing up? Predominantly our lakes that we inspect are not infested. So concerned about boaters showing up at uninfested lakes having left somewhere within 24 hours. And we do throw in there, random factor because people might not tell you that they just came from an infested lake. So we don't always rely exactly on what lake they say they're coming from. But we do backlook that data and say, were we on the lake that they said they were coming from? So we're not just moving over to the infested waters, or the uninfested waters, but also trying to ensure that we're covering infested accesses appropriately. We have a few lakes where people just don't really show up anywhere else from that infested water. They either move over to the adjoining lake where we're there 4 days a week and DNR covers a few of the other days, or they don't show up at any of our other lakes. Conversely, we have one infested water. 10% of the boaters that leave there show up at another access in our county within 24 hours. So it ranges from less than 0.5% up to that lake at 10%. So we also try and balance that way. Woman Lake is the source of a lot of risky boater movements to uninfested waters, and we want to be over there. So it doesn't come out maybe the way you would have expected once you look at all the data, and it's definitely fine-tuned our hours allocation, where it used to be, every infested water over 3 boaters an hour had 600 hours on it. That one infested water now is down at about 200, and woman's up at like 780. So that's basically one of the factors we dig into and why.
Thanks, Steve. Travis.
Hi, everybody. So yeah, I'm Travis Kinslow. I'm the South Region Supervisor for the DNR. And I was just gonna share one of my screens here.
Travis is our data guru, I would say.
So this is just kind of some general guidance that we use for our tier lists, and some of you may have heard us talking about tier lists before, and this is kind of how we, kind of like what Steve was talking about. We're trying to decide where best to use our decon units and put them out on the landscape within our work areas. And generally, one of our work areas is 35 miles. Some places we end up going further than that. But anyways, just generally, we're looking at about 4 different categories on our tier list. First of all, the lake needs to be zebra mussel infested for us to put our decon unit hours there, and it needs to be a lake that we can actually get a decon unit at the access. The access needs to be big enough to have the decon unit set up there. And then we also take a look at our inspections per hour. Primarily, we're using our DNR inspections per hour. We do get inspections or get hour data from the LGUs at the end of the season, but it doesn't play as nicely in our database as our own records of our inspections per hour. So we're pulling those out, and we're looking for high use accesses, and they're going to get points based on, like, if there's between 0 and 1 inspections per hour there, it gets a 0. If it's between 1 and 2, it gets a 1. If it's between 2 and 3, it gets a 2, and so on and so forth. And we assign a number based on that. Then we go into it and looking into ballast boats, and we take a look at the entire the entire area. Take a look at the total number of ballast tank boats we're seeing in the entire area, and then we take each access and divide those out amongst the total so that we're kind of getting a percentage. And then any of those outliers, like the higher, 15%, 20% or higher or whatever, we're giving those a point, and the other accesses are getting a 0. Then we kind of do the same thing for boats that are going to be launching again within 48 hours for exiting boats. Again, we sum them all up, and then we divide each axis out and give them a point based on that. And what that kind of looks like here, if I scroll up here, this is just kind of a generalized example. So we've got our zebra mussel infested water, so everybody gets a 1 there. And that sums it up. And then here we've got our high use axis summarization. So we go through, we put in our inspections per hour for each axis down here, and then we give them their point values up here for that. And then that sums up all that. When we come down and we look at the ballast tank boats, again, we put in the percentage of ballast tank boats for each axis among the total. And here, this lake, whichever it is, it's just a general example. It's getting 23% of the ballast tank boats in the work area. So that lake gets a 1, these other lakes get a 0. And then launching again within 48 hours. Again, we're putting in the percentages down here and taking the outliers and giving them a 1. That sums everything up down here in this row. We get our total over here, and then we use that to get percentages. And then very up here in the top, we have our estimated number of days that we're going to have a decon unit available. And so it takes that number and takes these percentages and then gives us the number of days that we're going to shoot for at each axis. And then there's all kinds of other factors that we have to factor in, like our LGUs working at those axes. Do they have decon units out there? If there's an axis that LGU has 7 days a week coverage out there and they're out there with a decon unit, we might zero out the hours here and put those hours somewhere else. And well, it should update the rest of these, but it didn't. Oh, I did the wrong thing. We would zero out this one here. Then it should update everything down there and distribute those numbers to another axis. So yeah, that may be more confusing for everybody, but that's kind of how we decide where we're going to put our decon units. And then for our level 1 hours, we basically try to do a little bit of a less complicated tier list, and we're sending them out to accesses that we just can't put a decon unit out at it. Then we go down to accesses that have starry stonewort. Then we get to accesses that we can't put a decon unit at, and then other exploratory hours. And we kind of try to split out our hours that way as much as possible. Andrew?
Yeah, these are all great. I like looking at data too. If am I able to share my screen for just like 2 minutes? I can share some examples of kind of how we use our data. See if I'm able to get that to work.
Go for it.
Let's see. I think it's this one. Are you seeing like a hourly graph?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So one of the things I do every few years is I take trend analysis of a lot of data points. I'm sure, Alicia, seems like you do a lot of the same from our inspection data. It is quite amazing how much data you can get in there, get from all the data. And since the sample size is usually quite large, I think the data is still somewhat meaningful. So I just wanted to share kind of 2 examples. One is a 5-year trend analysis of hourly inspections. And so this is the distribution of all of the inspections on all of the lakes in Carver County over 5 years. And you don't need to necessarily pay attention to the differences in the number of inspections, but kind of the shape of the graph, right? So it's not really I wouldn't call it an even distribution bell curve, but it's kind of taking the shape of one a little bit, which I found interesting. But if I do the same analysis for, let's say, one lake, this is the same thing for Lotus Lake, which is a big popular recreational lake. You can see how that curve changes, and a lot of recreators go out after work, right? So we're seeing the peak hours kind of 4 or 5 p.m. and then that large decrease right around 6, 7 p.m. When folks are going home for dinner. So I've been doing these every 5 years, and they really give us a good snapshot of kind of what's going on, inspections per hour wise. And then you can also take the data and do inspections by your day of week. So again, this is just 2 examples of how we use that data. So this one here is the 5-year trend of all the inspections. And then if I take Otis Lake, you do get about the same thing with days of the week. It kind of goes Monday's slowest, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is the busiest, and that seems to never really change with our lakes. So yeah, I guess that's really all I wanted to share. A lot of this stuff is pretty easy, especially if you are kind of familiar with statistics. But if anyone wants some help with this kind of stuff, I can help, and maybe Alicia can help. So I want to put that out there. Thanks.
Yeah, to add that to that, when I asked like what workshop would you like to attend, there was a lot of little dots around data analysis and pivot tables and such. So I think we have an upcoming workshop on data analysis in particular.
Awesome.
Can I steal the screen share real quick?
Of course.